Hello, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Hope you're all safe, sound, and healthy. And as would be, once again, the minute I finish podcasting, another thing comes up. And that is that there was this interesting thing where I was listening to Dr. Shabazz Gill, and he was talking about how DHA, wishing to expand its residential colony. As you know, DHA is a residential area or a colony, whatever you like to call it. It's urban planning, okay? In other words, where it's a housing society. What's wrong with me? Okay. So DHA is a housing society that is owned by the military. And as we know, it has always been controversial one way or the other that a lot of land has been taken over by the military, either in the form of DHA or, as we know, recently the military has been after the agriculture industry, right? They have been trying to force, they have been trying to make actually legislative changes in which they should be able to monopolize the agricultural industry, and they want to take over the farms of the people. And as you know, Pakistan is basically an agricultural country, right? So interestingly, now most recently, according to Dr. Shabazz Gill, right now the people in Gujranwala are protesting against the fact that these are poor farmers, and they have lands that are farms essentially, and that DHA suddenly wishes to expand, right? And it's forcing the farmers to give up their land for very low price against the actual value for which DHA is eventually going to sell each land or plot, you know. So the farmers are saying, stop trying to shortchange us. If you really, really want this land from us, give us a good incentive, give us the value that really truly belongs to this land. And we may even consider selling our land to you, right? And they're absolutely right, because it's absolute dishonesty to go and try to get a valuable land, which is actually even more valuable in the sense that it is farm land. These are all agricultural lands that you're trying to take away and turn them into a bloody housing society. Again, should I remind you, our whole climate is effed. Why is it effed? Not just because of the wars, not just because of the evolution, not just because of your global warming, but also because of the fact that lots and lots of greenery is being deliberately terminated, exterminated, eliminated by self-serving a-holes who want to make a quick buck. Be they politicians, be they the military, be they industrialists, it just doesn't matter. Right? These are the people who have been destroying the environment. And it's funny because literally just a few hours ago today, I was thinking, it just suddenly out of the blue came to my mind when I was thinking about solar and green energy and all. And I was thinking that, I was actually thinking along the lines of, does the production of solar panels and does the production of a solar system, is it environmentally friendly, or does it cost the environment? I was just thinking, is the actual process of creating an environmentally friendly energy producing system, I mean, is the production itself environmentally friendly? You know what I'm saying? Because as I've noticed in many of these so-called environmentally friendly products, you find that the actual process or manufacturing is detrimental to the environment, which then, you just don't understand. Where are you supposed to go with that? And strangely, even though I was thinking about all of that, and also because recently we were pretty peed off because our housing society's management, without our permission and without even realizing that this is practically illegal as it is at the moment, at least as far as I know, it should remain illegal, it should be illegal, where they used a public space, which is a park. It was a children's park, and they converted it into their own mini solar farm in order to help produce water. First of all, you don't need such a huge system just to just to use your generators and your tube wells to get the water supply going. You understand? We do not have a solar farm sort of a thing just to work our houses, do we? So, I mean, I wouldn't call it a farm or a plant, but I mean, what I'm trying to say is that they put more than necessary. It is a system that's huge. It's more than that is, you just, I think a 5 to 10 kV would be more than enough to turn on your tube wells and generate water supply. So I don't see the need of over 83 kV system, which to me is like a literally like a small solar farm. In other words, because like if you look at the park, literally half the park is taken up, more than half the park, and the park is already small as it is, and it was a children's park for little children, and it's taken over by this whole gigantic solar unit that nobody is happy about. First of all, they did a poor job of it, as all I'm saying. They could have gone for a smaller scale, which would have been even more effective, and if they wanted a larger scale, then they could have just chosen some rooftops instead of planking it down, setting up tall frames in the middle of a goddamn park. So, and I heard that they were trying to do it in one of the other blocks parks too, or they actually did it. I don't know. So here we are. And then, I was coming just now. I was just scrolling over on the internet and on YouTube. I came across this short video amongst the shorts, wherein we have this. She's a writer by profession, according to her, and in her YouTube channel, she talks about how she's acquired this gigantic raw farmland, and she wants to encourage everybody to come towards this house of green, which she explains is a pollinator farm and monarch way station in upstate New York, right? So this is where I guess her farm is as well, that she's bought. And it's called House of Green, I think I just said. And her name is Alexandra. Sorry, I don't want to get her last name wrong. Right, Alexandra Fasulo, I think, right? Sorry if I got the last name's pronunciation wrong. But the thing is, now she says she bought 6.74 acres of raw land 2 years ago, that is in 2023, and now she's building out a farm, and she's kind of taking her audience along with her, for the ride. And then she's talking about how, there are a lot of farms and farmland, barns, farming assets up for sale in the US, that she expects that will be up in the next 20 years, which I agree totally, because remember, this is something I talked about in some of my older podcasts, where I said that the way things are going, we will have to go back to the basics, back to the, and this is how any and every agricultural country thinks generally, and that is that we have to be self-sufficient. We have to sustain ourselves. So we have to start growing fruit trees and vegetables and have a kitchen garden, and you understand, get back to base. And that is why, as I told you before, a few years ago, the trend of people buying farmhouses or making farmhouses, getting farmlands, making farmhouses, and then having poultry and having cattle and having vegetable gardens and all, and they're sort of selling on a small scale, just a small, not a commercial scale, but a small scale. They're selling their organic produce, right? So, as I said, this is very, very common sense. You can say very, very commonsensical for us. When you're living in an agricultural country, you automatically go back to that point of view where you say, oh, you know what, it's better if we just grow our own. It's better if we make our own, if it's better. And it's a lot of hard work, which is why obviously we stopped all of that, isn't it? It's because it's a lot of hard work, but we seem to be forced to be going back to all of that because of all the mistrust that has arisen when it comes to commercial products or when it comes to GMOs. And then also when it comes to the erratic fluctuation of prices, especially in Pakistan, the way things were going. We had already, as soon as Imran Khan was ousted, we knew that we were in for the worst time of our lives, financially, economically, in every way possible, not just politically and socially or even religiously, but generally. So we kind of saw these days coming, and as you can see, every single day the price of everything fluctuates. Can you imagine? Have you ever heard of the price of a vegetable fluctuating per day? Or the price of poultry fluctuating per day, or the price of eggs changing every day? It's because the mafia, the political groups, the political families that are ruling over us, they have taken over many of these industries, and they are obviously as a result, creating problems for their whole country because they are now upping the amount. I mean, they're upping the value of the products more than they actually are. These are products that are homegrown. Why would and as I said once, as I talked about it once, Nawaz Sharif started this trend, that whenever he came into government, he would over export all our valuable produce, from wheat to rice to sugar to anything and everything that he could get his hands on, vegetables. And then he would import it all back when we faced deficits. He would import it all back for double the amount. That's how he made his dishonest, corrupt money. And they're still doing that, right now. They're doing exactly that. They just did that again with sugar, I think. So here you are, you know. And so, as I was saying, when I was scrolling, she was talking in this short video of hers that one of her neighbors, who was an older man, probably 60, 70 years old, and he just came and greeted her and, introduced himself to her that he's her neighbor. And then he showed her that he owned the whole land over there. It's about 100 acres, was it? I'm sorry if I'm wrong there or exaggerating, but in our country, it's actually very easy to have all these acres of land. So I'm sure I'm not wrong if it's America. But anyway, and she was saying that he told her that actually there was a farmland up for sale, and so investment companies were coming in, and now the solar companies were coming and trying to force him or pressurize him to sell his farmland. Yeah, it was 100 acres, I think, to them, promising about 40K per year or something as an incentive. Now that again made me think of it sort of literally put me back as to, wow, that's so weird, because literally a few hours ago I was thinking about the implications of manufacturing solar systems, the panels, and everything else, that whether its implication on the or on the environment, or its impact on the environment is actually negative, or is it okay. And then you find out that they want to build gigantic solar farms. Now the irony here is, you want to make solar farms to help produce green energy by killing the actual greenery on earth. Does it make sense? Like, literally, does it make sense? It doesn't, isn't it? You're actually advertising, and obviously, as you said, the New York state government is probably in a way behind it, because it's now giving incentives to these investment companies and solar companies, that they should go about and make their solar farms. And obviously, I get that, but you see, that's the whole point here, is where you are trying to talk about, you're selling, your pitch here is go green, right? Let's go green, let's have green energy, let's use the sun's energy and this and that. But you're killing greenery, the actual environment that you're trying to protect in the name. I mean, what are you doing? You're killing the very environment that you're claiming you want to protect by going green. You're killing green. How can you expect to go green when you're killing green? It's beyond ridiculous the way these people are going out. As I said, these are those people who are literally narcissistic megalomaniacs. These are imperialistic a-holes who think that they are gods and that they have the right to own everything on this world. And you don't. I'm sorry, you don't. Stay within your limits, for crying out loud. We are actually the aliens in this world. In case you didn't know that, we are aliens. Okay, the animals, the plants, the creatures here, they were here way before us. We were dropped into this earth. Why don't you try and remember that? You have no right to tamper with the earth. Not to this extent, at least, You've already effed up the oceans, for crying out loud. Then you went and, chemicalized to the groundwater that was a sweet, clean drinking water. You went and toxified it, poisoned it to hell. Okay, and then you started adding chemicals and toxins to food, and then you decided to go all out on your GMOs. What are you trying to do? I understand the concept behind GMO, by the way, and I know that because the whole point, as it always begins, it begins with the point of helping humanity so that famine never occurs. But then when you start going beyond that, when you start genetically engineering products or produce that has to go directly into our bodies to such a scale that it will end up mutating our very own DNAs or disturbing our hormones, then you need to think where you're going, right? There has to be a limit. How far are you going to go? It's like, it's like the discovery of atom, and then trying to, and understanding the implications as a human being and not just as a scientist, and saying, what, I wish I never discovered it. And I get him, because the first thing that ever happened is America went and weaponized it. And not only that, America actually went and used it. And then America has the audacity to still have nuclear weapons while it's preaching to the world not to. That's sheer hypocrisy here in my book. Worse than hypocrisy. That's again that God complex right in front of you, that psychopathic mentality. And then they're like, again, what even drove you towards making this is because you thought that the Germans were making it. Yeah, because they actually discovered the whole fission theory, or Fisher theory to be accurate. And you were so scared that they were actually going to finally make a bomb that you decided to start working on it. So Britain and the Allied forces, they decided to work together. That was considered the first organized effort. Imagine an organized effort to create a bomb that can kill the whole world. No, not an organized effort to work on the fissure theory so that you can have clean, cheap energy. No, no, no. Organized effort on making a weapon that could obliterate the entire world. And then America's, hey, why should we stay behind? We need to get on track on this. And then America decides to start its Manhattan Project. And then it groups with the Allied forces. And here you go. And not only that, again, knowing, don't tell me they didn't know what they were doing. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly the implications of it. And they decided to use it on Japan. No other nuclear country, as I've said in my last podcast, has ever used their bombs except America. And yet America wants to strip everybody of their nuclear energy or nuclear weapons or whatever it is that everybody has in the form of nukes. But nobody even thought of stripping or punishing America, penalizing America for dropping the bomb in Japan. Nobody thought of stripping America of its weapons. Nobody thought of attacking America and, destroying its nuke facilities, which America thinks it's fine doing that to Iran. But it's not fine to do that. It's, what? In my book, the person who has actually committed the crime, he's the one who needs to be stripped of all his assets that were used to commit that crime. He's the one who's supposed to be castrated. And yet the criminal is trying to castrate the others who didn't even do anything? Seriously? Well, why don't you just sit and think about all of that while I sign out? Khuda Hafiz.